But this whole thing of like, they're just fishermen, they're just farmers, it's bull, and you know it's bullshit. But what's weird to me is Democrats will go out of your way.
It's weird to me that you just accept whatever this administration says when they lie all the time. Like, go-to move is just to lie about some stuff. We were told the CCOT guys were the worst of the worst. Oh, they're the worst of the worst. They're these violent criminals. They're all gang members.
Damn, look at her fidgeting.
If he's this violent gang leader, don't you want to see him prosecuted?
I want to see him sent out of our country.
Brought to justice? You're gonna just let this violent gang leader go? Shouldn't be.
Oh, that's what I said to Tim Pool. Krystal, she's on that level. She's on that level.
I love it when they just deport people. I think that's better. I'd rather do that.
So you like it when people don't face justice?
No, they do. It's called
boom. And this is embarrassing, Tomi.
Go free.
No, it's being.
You like to let criminals go free and not have to serve time in prison.
Ow! 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 Tomi, what are you gonna say?
Oh, that's weird.
But do you think Bad Bunny's a good choice for the Super Bowl?
Seems like a great American artist.
Not an American artist, but
he's Puerto Rican. That's part of America, dear.
Oh. Oh. Wait, what?
Seems like a great American artist. So sure.
He's not an American artist, but
he's Puerto Rican. That's part of America, dear.
Hey, folks. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to check out my newsletter. Information is in the description.
Anyway, yes, this is Tomi Lahren. Tomi Lahren of Tomi Lahren is Fearless channel. Used to be on Blaze TV. Used to be on Fox News. Interviewing or talking to Krystal Ball. Now, I know some members of my community, they have this like negative view of Krystal Ball. I don't have a negative view of Krystal Ball. I think Krystal Ball is like sneakily one of the best debaters on the left in some of these areas, especially in the areas that I agree with her on. She is able to bring points in a way and like cleanly, and with like where she doesn't come across as preachy or anything. She comes across, I think, as like a normal human being. And so I really respect what she's doing. I don't agree with her on everything, but I do think she's a very strong debater.
I don't know if you're a Mamdani fan or not, but you are a big fan of Mamdani?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you are? Okay. So he wants to provide $65 million for gender-affirming care.
I mean, Tomi, I think everyone should get healthcare. So yes, I think trans people should get healthcare as well.
I hope that you guys stick with that, and I hope that Mamdani is your poster child, and I hope that you run on it. I'm not going to give you any feedback because I, too, hope that that is the direction that you go.
If you review his policy proposals, you'll see this is not some, like, dyed-in-the-wool ideologue.
Best of luck with the
I hate this attitude, by the way. Thank you so much for the super chat. I hate this attitude that a lot of conservatives are having recently, which is, this is an 80-20 issue. I hope you run on this. Why don't you actually have the discussion? It's always going to this meta point about, oh, you're going to lose an election. Or, you know, that's not popular, though. Oftentimes, I think they're misconstruing a lot of polls that oftentimes have slanted wording or phrasing. The best example, I think, is immigration, where how they put the polling question will often determine the outcome, whether people are pro-immigration or anti-immigration. You'll ask them like, do you agree that illegal immigrants should be stealing all your fucking land and shit and taking all your resources and having sex with your wife? And it's like 80% no. I don't know about that 20%. But if you ask it like, is America a country of immigrants? Should we be encouraging more immigration? It's like 60% yes. So like how you phrase the question oftentimes. So, but regardless of what the actual polling says or whether the interpretations are good faith, I find that it's boring to zoom out and be like, you guys are going to lose. Your idea isn't popular. As though that was a standard about whether you're right or wrong, is like how many people agree with you. And it's certainly not one that conservatives have been championing. Like, this is dangerous ideas. We think differently. And we go against the consensus. And we're not just people who spit out the common talking points. So yeah, I get annoyed when people are like, 80-20 issue, 80-20 issue. Keep saying that and you'll lose the election. You often hear it, by the way, of these enlightened centrist types as well when it comes to like the Charlie Kirk aftermath. Keep saying what you're saying about Kirk, you're going to lose the election. Keep calling Kirk a fascist, you're going to lose an election. Okay, bet. That's a different conversation. 1 and 2, I don't think we will, because we call fascists fascists.
That socialist endeavor in America.
Oh, we love the intro. It's so unique. I mean, this has never happened before. No one's. Oh wow. Are they bringing on our boy?
Fascism is a heavy term.
Sure it is.
But I'll say it. We have a fascist in the White House.
Let me ask you tonight. Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll.
Fascism is an ideology, not a style of dictatorship. You are conflating right-wing dictatorship with fascism to normatively load. Neo-fascist is a maybe. I mean, I don't know what you heard from the conversation with P.F. Jung, Minority Retort, or who you're talking to, but certainly didn't hear me. I said it was an ideology up front. So whatever your notion of it is, if it's an ideology versus a style of dictatorship, I don't think anyone used the term style of dictatorship.
Roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core.
And it continues. The assassination attempts on President Trump weren't enough. The public execution of Charlie Kirk wasn't enough. The 1,000% uptick in assaults on our federal agents, still not enough. The leftists, the libs, and yes, mainstream elected Democrats who desperately want to be president, all singing off the same sheet of music. And they won't stop because, frankly, I don't think they care what the ramifications are. Fascist this, Nazi that, Timu Hitler, Putin's hoe, we've heard it all. Did these leftists even know the definitions of the slanderous and discussing labels
This
they
is
throw?
so slanderous. It's slanderous to call someone a fascist. If it's slanderous to do so, and what they'll never contend with is that they've been doing the same exact shit that they would never construe or characterize as slanderous. Furthermore, it's true. They're just, I mean, it's true given, I think, the technical meaning here, or the common meaning, whatever you want to go by. I think it's a true fact. And also this whole even outlook, which is, oh, your words might cause something, right? Like, isn't that what conservatives ostensibly were supposed to be? I don't believe they ever were. But when they were met with, like, words are violence and safe spaces, and you should agree with our language because if you don't, it'll have terrible consequences. Weren't the conservatives the ones to be like, wait, I'm just going to speak to the truth, and, like, I'm not responsible for what crazy people do or what bigoted people do or locos with a gun do. That was kind of like the conservative talking point when it came to, like, hate speech on campus and discourse about woke ideology. So it's very rich to see now the mask come completely off. They never cared about free and open discourse and truth telling. They just didn't like to be called what they were, which was often racist and often, bigots.
On us? If you believe in school choice, a secure border, energy independence, or God forbid, traditional values, you're basically a Mussolini cosplayer, right? That's how far off the rails this has gone. Wait, you think...
And yeah, all the Republicans calling Democrats Nazis, fascists, communists since Obama, yeah. There's just no answer to this. Anyone who brings up the point about, well, fascism is going to cause all this violence, it's a call to violence, they cannot contend with this. That Republicans have been calling Democrats fascists, Nazis, communists for decades. Was that a call to violence? There's no... And it's not about saying, well, your moral values, you're trying to make that all derivative of the course of conduct of Republicans. No. It's about what they meant by that. Did Trump mean that he wanted Kamala Harris to be attacked when he called her a fascist? And most people would say, no, that's not what those words meant. That's not what he was trying to say there, because it's not a call to violence. And everyone knows that.
Parents should have a say in their kids' education, you monster. If you come into this country illegally, you're subject to deportation, the horror. No, it's the law. Let's be clear. Real fascism, actual textbook, boots on the ground fascism, is not just someone who disagrees with me politically. It's dictatorship, it's state-run media, it's suppression of dissent, it's political violence used to silence the opposition, which, let's be honest, sounds a lot closer to some of the tactics we've seen from the radical...
And you see how she just rushes through. She rushes through a bunch of stuff that fascists did, and she tries to get it out as fast as possible. But imagine if I like attacked this, right? Like if we took that notion about what the word meant and interrogated it for 2 seconds. It's why these people don't want to actually have the semantic conversation about what the term means. They're uncomfortable with it because whatever they're providing is garbage bullshit. Like, yeah, there are some fascists who instituted dictatorship, but they were fascists before they did so.
For at least the last decade. Calling everyone who leans right a fascist is not just dishonest, it's dangerous. And not just because it puts a big old target
she went speedily through a bunch of stuff that fascists did. It's dictatorship, it's silencing dissent, it's this and that, Did she define it? No, she just gave a bunch of stuff that fascists do when they're in power and they have complete control. And she went as fast as possible when there's a confusion here. There's a confusion. And I think the confusion or deceit, frankly, has to do with what this term means.
On our backs, but also this. When everything is fascism, nothing is. The left did the same with the label racist, and while they still love that one, they've become more enamored with fascist because it's more abstract, and they can assign whatever the hell they want to it because, let's be honest, these idiots...
And here we go. This is such a great dovetail to our conversation with P.F. Jung, because you can see it in real time. It's more concrete or more abstract in the case of fascism. You need to know what you mean. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean by concrete here or abstract? Fascism is more abstract than racism? Don't you have to have a notion of racism? You just pointed to a bunch of things that, I don't know, are they essential to fascism? Dictatorship, silencing opponents? That seems like less abstract than racism, at least intuitively. Whatever your notion of fascism was just there seems like, oh, it's silencing opponents. Well, I can look at that, right? It's dictatorship. Well, I can look at that. So really, what are we talking about here? You need to have a meaning of what you understand fascism to be in order to make these kinds of claims. And the one that you provided, A, doesn't pass muster under how people use the term in a technical sense, in a historical sense, or even in like dictionaries. It's just isn't. And even under the notion that you provide, the comparison fails because what you provided seems a lot less abstract than racism.
Protesters and Antifa freaks don't really know what the hell fascism is, and they don't care. It's an excuse. It turns our politics into a clown show. It shuts down debate. It desensitizes people to the real threats out there, and maybe that's the point. Because if you can paint every conservative, from a suburban mom to a small business owner, as a budding Hitler, you don't have to argue ideas anymore. You just smear, silence, and move on. It's lazy, it's manipulative, and yeah, it's un-American. If Democrats really want to have a conversation, let's do it. Let's talk about policy, solutions. But this fascist nonsense, it's a political crutch, a fear tactic, a distraction, and honestly, it's getting old. But joining me now to have the discussion is liberal commentator and co-host of Breaking Points with Krystal and Sagar is Krystal Ball. Krystal, it's so great to have you. I want to have the discussion. I know that you tweet a lot about it, and I'm very interested to hear if you think President Trump is
Let's go, Krystal.
Fascist, and if you think that I, by definition, as a conservative, am also a fascist.
I don't think everyone who supports President Trump is a fascist. I do think that President Trump is a fascist, though. And I'll give you a perfect example, Tommy. It's kind of an awkward day for you to give this spiel because Trump is speaking to all the generals today in Quantico. And he just said that he's going to use the military against the enemy within, which is part and parcel of what he's been doing with deploying the National Guard in cities across the country. So when you ask about definition of fascism, the president really sort of gave his own definition of fascism today. I know you want to agree with that, but let me just make a broader point here.
Yeah, I want to dive into
Well, let me just make a broader point here because, you know, I think as someone who came from a side that did a lot of tone policing and, by the way, called out people who were policing rhetoric and doing the whole cancel culture thing, I would really caution you from going down this path, especially as someone who, you know, is a commentator, uses your words for a living. I know in the past I did a little bit of research. You called people who were enforcing mask protocols Nazis. President Trump has, of course, used his language in quite aggressive ways.
Oh, so good. So good there. So immediately pointing out, again, this is not meant to demonstrate the point that Tomi Lahren is a hypocrite, though she is a hypocrite, right? Like, absolutely, she is a hypocrite. It's meant to show Tomi that unless she's willing to bite the bullet, that what she was doing there was categorically unacceptable or calling for violence or some kind of like un-American thing, then she's going to be having an inconsistent standard. Ultimately, they're going to have an actual fight about what is fascism, what is Nazism. And if your point is that a necessary component to fascism is dictatorship, which it wasn't clear based on Tomi. Tomi's a very dumb person. She's not very smart at all, very stupid. Not very clear that she gave a coherent definition of fascism that's even intelligible, other than listing out some things that, you know, some fascist governments did, but that it's not going to pass muster given her previous comments. So it's not necessarily just about the hypocrisy point that Krystal's bringing out here. It has to do with what the words mean and whether she's willing to bite the bullet that what she was doing during COVID, etc., was un-American.
You know, is a commentator, uses your words for a living. I know in the past I did a little bit of research. You called people who were enforcing mask protocols Nazis. President Trump has, of course, used his language in quite aggressive ways, including calling Kamala Harris and others fascist, radical leftists, communists, et cetera, et cetera. Do I think that that was inciting violence against Kamala Harris? Do I think you were inciting violence against people who were enforcing mask mandates?
This was my little exchange with, I'm not saying that I originated this idea, but the question I kept asking of that Twitter person when we did the review of my Twitter was, are you saying that Donald Trump was calling for Kamala Harris to be hurt when he called her a fascist? And what she should do there is really push her on that. Really push her on that. I hope that she does that. I'm not sure that she will, but even bringing it up is good, because that's just like, it's a point that these MAGA sycophants, because they can't say, right, that Trump was calling for Kamala Harris to be hurt, because then they lose this sanctimonious position that they've tried to hold themselves out with, and that they think that they're better than everybody. But once they acknowledge that, yeah, the reality, the tape where Trump is calling her a fascist, you have to make sense of it. Was he calling for violence there?
That was inciting violence. Fascists, radical leftists, communists, et cetera, et cetera. Do I think that that was inciting violence against Kamala Harris? Do I think you were inciting violence against people who were enforcing mask mandates? No. So I think we have to really maintain this commitment to First Amendment free speech, even in the face of incredible crackdowns from this administration in ways that are truly extraordinary and quite dystopian.
I would love to hear about the First Amendment crackdowns from this administration and what you would classify those as. But I want to go back to President Trump this morning. And again, I know that the liberals, I know that you all love it when he says something and it's like, oh my God, this is the definition. He's going to use the military against us. Well, I would argue it's well within his rights to use the National Guard in D.C. And D.C. is a pretty great place right now, by all accounts, because of his use of the National Guard there to keep people safe, mostly black and brown people, I would add. But also, when you are deploying troops to protect federal agents and federal buildings, you're also well within your right. That's not authoritarian. It's if you want to have Antifa lighting the streets on fire and terrorizing people in these cities, President Trump is going to protect his agents and he's going to protect federal assets. So I don't know what part of that you think is authoritarian. To me, it's just, if you guys want to play stupid games, we're going to make sure that we have our federal assets protected. Would you rather they just be out?
And to be clear about Krystal's point here, Krystal Ball didn't just say, and it is a dodge, and Krystal, I hope, is going to bring it back to, were you calling for violence? You, Tomi, when you called them Nazis. Was Trump calling for violence when he called Kamala Harris a fascist? I really hope that she goes there, because this is a bit of a dodge, because, whatever. But Krystal's point here isn't that the use of the military domestically is per se fascism. It's evidence, right? Like the fact that he's taken the stance of domestic deployment of the military, in the context of that is also that the military is helping either facilitate or themselves engaging in unconstitutional stops, seizures, etc. And arguably, I would say, definitely in violation of the statutes and against posse comitatus. That's the context. It's not that it entails fascism. It's just much more likely, under an explanation, that this is a fascist government, and it's evidence for it being a fascist government. So I don't think that Krystal would be committed that any government that uses the military domestically is fascistic. But in context, this deployment of the military is evidence, I would say strong evidence, of the fascistic tendencies of the Trump regime.
Out there and be attacked by Molotov cocktails and bottles and things being lit on fire around them, buildings being lit on fire. I mean, is that your preferred course?
Well, first of all, I would say I don't think you should believe everything that you see on Fox News, Tomi, because that is not the reality in any of these cities. And I spend quite a bit of time in Washington, D.C. Second of all, local law enforcement exists for a reason. And there's a reason why we have a separation between civilian local law enforcement and the military. The military is trained to go after enemies. Do you see the American people as the enemy? Because that's the way that President Trump is framing this. He is saying
in DC,
the enemy within is the American people.
In the National Guard in DC, have they gone after you? Have they militarized?
Have they gone after me specifically?
Or have they gone after anybody?
Krystal has a way of disarming her interlocutor, and also having credibility with these conservatives that she's built up. Sometimes I think she's been open about the fact that she was highly critical of her own side in that sort of 2020 era and a little bit before. But it has worked because she's able to stand on business and say, hey, I did call out my side when they went too far or whatever. But she also has this way of repeating back the thing that the interlocutor just said, or the debate opponent just said, to make you sound as stupid as possible. Are you saying that in order for me to make an assessment as to whether the deployment is unconstitutional or evidence of fascism or whatever, I would have to personally be? And so I just love the way that she does that. And she did it also on Piers Morgan. And so, yeah, good.
It's an example of where the National Guard in D.C. has hurt an American civilian or has been militarized against an American citizen, because they've been there for what now, a couple months? I haven't seen any example of where the National Guard has overstepped their boundaries or authority or done anything.
The deployment at all, I would say, in California, Chicago, et cetera, I think is overstepping their authority.
It would qualify as like this militarized authoritarian rule. I haven't seen it. Maybe you have.
Yeah, so I think there's a fair point that you're making there, which is that because we have the Posse Comitatus Act, you cannot actually engage in civilian law enforcement. A lot of what they've done is to back up ICE agents, so we can have a whole separate conversation about the aggressive abuses there and the way that American people feel that that has gone way too far in a way that has been.
Now, I would not grant anything on the fact that you're bringing up Posse Comitatus, I think, is good, Krystal. But it sounds like it's a little bit of a concession, though, that like, yeah, they can't do civil law enforcement, and I don't think that she agrees with that. And B, they are doing civilian law enforcement. That's the problem. But I don't know that Krystal is saying that they're not. But how she phrased that almost makes it feel like she's, suggesting that she agrees that, yeah, law enforcement, they're obviously not allowed to do civilian law enforcement, so they're not. But they're doing that. That's the problem.
Aggressively violent. A lot of what they have done in DC is frankly like a waste of taxpayer dollars, picking up trash and just standing around.
However, in DC specifically, yes.
That doesn't mean that we should accept the image and normalize having military soldiers. And in LA, they use active duty Marines in our streets. Furthermore, what is probably even more troubling and has gotten a lot less attention is Trump just signed this new national security memorandum that effectively labels anyone who opposes him and his views as a potential domestic terrorist. Now, that does come with actual federal resources that can do a lot more than just like pick up trash and sort of stand around while ICE does whatever they want to do. So you're right. In DC, in Chicago.
And I would say standing around while ICE does their business is a form of civilian law enforcement. You're protecting ICE. You're accompanying ICE on any civilian law enforcement mission. And that is a way of enforcing civilian law by merely being a presence there. You're helping facilitate the enforcement of civil law. And that's what Judge Breyer found out in the Central District of California, I believe.
So what we've seen so far, a lot of this is like fascist theater, but it is meant to intimidate. It is meant to send a message that political opposition will not be tolerated. And you have to put it together, Tomi. I genuinely want to ask you this question. Like, is there nothing that he's done that you feel like, it's a little too far? Like we've had the tariffs, which have been wild and unilaterally imposed. We've got Palantir getting contracts to surveil anyone and everyone they want to. We have people being sent to a foreign gulag with zero due process. We have National Guard being deployed in city after city after city.
I love that. I love sending them off to Sikot with no due process.
You have American citizens. I mean,
City after city after city.
This video.
Which cities has he deployed National Guard to besides protecting
LA,
federal?
DC, Memphis, Portland.
We invited him here.
We invited him
to Tennessee. Governor invited him to come clean up the streets of Memphis because they desperately need the help. So this is, I'm genuinely curious in this.
But Tomi, can you respond to the question though? None of this you feel this is a little too far.
No, she can't say yes. She can't say yes because these people will lose any credibility with their audience, which I'll say 80%, 90% part of a cult, because these, I'm not saying every MAGA voter, 80, 90% MAGA voters, but of the audience, these are people who are more politically inclined. They don't want anyone to say that what Trump is doing is bad, and certainly not in front of a left-wing or liberal person. So she can't give ground at all. And if she went too far, she's like, yeah, I don't like that. I think it's bad. Even honestly, she's risking her livelihood.
Policing comedians' monologues, right?
He's not
using lawsuits to threaten media, consolidating media in the hands of his allies.
I know that you're not trying to allege that Jimmy Kimmel or Colbert were taken off the air because of President Trump.
They obviously were. I mean, Kimmel in particular. Colbert, you could make another argument about. But the FCC commissioner came out and said we could do this the easy way or the hard way. And next thing you know, Disney pulls the plug. Why? Because they know that this president weaponizes the federal government against his adversaries. They're worried about their business deals because the backlash was so severe. Look, these people don't care about anything about their bottom line. I hope you agree with that. And they saw more than 1.7 million Disney customers cancel their Disney Plus subscriptions. So they were like, oh, we've got an even bigger problem here. But there is zero doubt that the intention is to chill speech, to make anyone who opposes this president think twice before.
Great job.
Before they do that. That's what the university crackdowns are about. That's what the legal crackdowns are about. That's what kidnapping students off the street for writing an op-ed. That's what that's about. That's what the National Guard in the street is about. And that's what him saying to these generals today, we have to use the military against the enemy within. So you may not like the term fascist. You may not like it when it's thrown around by Democrats. You had no problem with it when it was thrown around by Trump, by the way. But that is, in fact, the accurate description of what we're seeing here. And so I have no problem with people trying to accurately describe the situation that they're experiencing in their own country.
Do you think that I have so many questions for you?
So good.
That whole thing, like democracy under attack, dictator on day one, that worked so well for you guys in November of last year. I'm actually shocked.
And just a total dodge from Tomi. Total dodge. The question isn't, was this messaging effective or not? I'm not, by the way, persuaded that the fascism messaging on net hurt Democrats, which is what you would have to show. I'm inclined to think that it probably helped them. People who cared about that stuff voted overwhelmingly for Democrats. The question is, what did people care about more? And the prevailing economic conditions almost certainly predetermined at least the heavy slant of that election. It was a close election nonetheless. But even assuming that she were correct, that talking about fascism or the threat to democracy hurt the Democrats, which I think is a preposterous notion for which there's no evidence. But even if she were correct about that, it's a total dodge. The question isn't, is it going to help the Democrats in the election? You can tell that's where her mind is at, because she's a grifter and because she's only motivated by outcomes for herself or political benefit and not by the truth. That's what she is grounding the conversation down into. Not whether or not it's true what Krystal is saying, not responding to the evidence that Krystal has presented, but saying, is this going to work for you instrumentally to elect Democrats? Complete dodge, weak shit. She's always been stupid. She's always been dumb, but it's so clear now. Any objective person watching this can see that total pivot towards the electoral outcomes of Democrats, which, by the way, Crystal Ball, sometimes too much, is critical of the Democrats in terms of their unwillingness to do things that she considers to be in their electoral advantage. And so you're pushing on a open door by talking to Krystal about Democrats not taking sufficient advantage of certain talking points or whatever. But it's just a very different conversation than one that Crystal's having, and a total and complete pivot.
That you're still using it and you think that it's working on the American people. It didn't, and it's
Tomi,
not.
Not everything is about a poll, right?
There you go.
About,
and she immediately sensed it, and she's pouncing. This is really, really good stuff.
You actually have a principle, and you actually care about protecting First Amendment.
Yeah, and that was so, and it's so obvious what she's doing it, and now she's doing this whole little bit, which is keep doing it. No, we love this. We keep doing it. It is so condescending, unwillingness to engage on every level, and Krystal saw it immediately. That's good.
If you guys think that, though, that's
Tomi,
fine.
this is, to me,
Krystal,
one of the best things about America. Is
I do
my
too.
ability and your ability to say what we think. You know, and I know you've been critical at times of Trump. I'm sure you'd like to preserve the ability to be so. I'm sure you'd like,
of course,
if there's a future.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, like, come on. She speaks out of both sides of her mouth sometimes, perhaps, but she has no credibility on speaking truth to power against Trump.
I have any danger of losing my ability to do it. Yeah, I don't think that.
But do you worry? Do you worry about the turnabout, though?
No, I don't.
Do you worry that when it's an AOC or a Gavin Newsom, that you're going to be the one put on the domestic terror watch list? Because that's what's happening right now.
Krystal. So if you did a little bit more research, you would know that your guy, AutoPen, actually did pressure social media companies to deplatform me, to move me down in the algorithm, to reduce me.
If you did a little bit of research, you would know that I complained and protested against those sorts of actions.
So, one, I think that Krystal has a different view on the Twitter files or whatever than I do. I think this is giving way too much fucking ground. I would never, and I had this conversation if you saw my most recent video with Connor, I don't think we should at all concede that there was coercion, by which we mean unlawful, undue pressure against these social media organizations to censor these people. I think that is a delusional belief for which there is no evidence. But it is true that Krystal was one of the people on the left who I think was calling that out. And again, I want to stress in a manner that I disagree with. But certainly in the context of this conversation as between them, you know, assuming their outlooks, Tomi can't criticize Krystal for this.
I have been consistent in saying we should not have a ministry of truth.
This is an actual
Government
example.
should not be involved. Hold on. Government should not be involved in pressuring social media companies to cancel. What the Biden administration did, as revealed in the Twitter files and the Hunter Biden laptop suppression, I spoke out against
oh
all
my
of that.
God.
So
I hate this. Sorry, Krystal. This sucks. Don't concede this shit. It's not true. We should have a discussion about it.
On that crap.
Well, I'm glad that you did.
That is nothing compared to the way that this administration has
This is
used
good.
the whole of government weaponized.
Yeah. So like, even if you were to grant that, which I don't think you should, because the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, my God, it's not even just that it isn't what they say. It's like almost the reverse of what the Republicans say. And keep in mind, this all occurred when Trump was in office. The suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop, you mean from Twitter in October 2020? Did we forget how time works, Krystal and Tomi? But yeah, we should never give ground on this talking point. It's false. It's the opposite. The truth was the Russians were trying to push fake, debunked narratives, provably false narratives, that they were taking bribes from Burisma, for which there's an indictment right now against Alexander Smirnov. And even if you were to buy it, the quote-unquote pressuring, it occurred when Trump was in office. Nothing to do with Biden. This is crazy.
Whole of government in order to try to silence.
But it is good that at least, even if you buy this view, the comparison, it's no comparison whatsoever. It's no comparison whatsoever.
And coerce their critics. There is no doubt about it. The FCC commissioner coming out and directly saying, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. That is overt jawboning. That is overt threats to
Will she give ground on this? Will Tomi say that that's okay? Let's see.
media companies. Then you have the lawsuits that are used to basically extract a bribe to coerce these media organizations. And then you have mass consolidation in the hands of Trump political allies. That's what's going on.
Presidents upon election immediately acquire mind control over every government agent. And just be aware of this, right? Like Trump was president for 3+ years. Whatever you want to say about the DOJ or the FBI with respect to the Twitter files, again, it's all bullshit narratives. It's all bullshit narratives. It's not true. It's not backed up. I've debunked it. Don't worry. I've debunked it. I've debunked the Twitter files narrative. If you don't believe me, we could have a conversation about it. I invite all the Twitter files believers to come on stream and talk about it. But even if you take the view that there was government coercion and that Trump can't be blamed for it because he doesn't have mind control over every government agent, Biden certainly doesn't have mind control over every government agent, right? Like, so how can we say it's Biden's fault?
So the First Amendment
Before
is
he's president.
under attack in a way we have never seen before, going back even to the days of George W. Bush and the Patriot Act and that surveillance, which I also objected to, by the way.
Crystal, it's interesting to me that when I show you all of the censorship from the Biden administration, which I'm glad that you disagreed with, but when I show you like concrete examples of they did this, they did that, Hunter Biden laptop impacted an election.
Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, look at what she's saying. And Krystal says, yeah, I'm sorry, this is not good. Hunter Biden laptop story, guys. She connects it to the Biden DOJ. It was in 2020. So even if you take the view that Trump isn't responsible for his DOJ in 2020, Biden was not in office. How the hell have we let the narrative turn out like this? How the hell have we not been stronger on the Twitter files bullshit? It is insanity. Same thing with COVID. Absolutely right.
Right? All the COVID misinformation, they pressured YouTube, Google, every single one of them was pressured. And these companies are coming out and saying we are pressured to deplatform people, to lock people out of the accounts, delete accounts, reduce people on these platforms during COVID, calling it misinformation, disinformation. We have concrete examples of this. But then you say, well, you know, because they deceptively edited that Kamala interview and because Colbert lost his show because he lost money and because Kimmel was off the air for 5 days, that's your example of like the government's cracking down on free speech when I have an actual example of they actually silence people. Here it is. Citizens, content creators, influencers, politicians, doesn't matter. They did all these things. And you're like, but Colbert and Kimmel, you see why it's hard for me to believe you when you're like, the First Amendment is now under attack.
It's hard for me when you spoke out against those things under the Biden administration.
Boom.
And you have nothing to say.
Boom. There we go. Push it. Keep pushing it.
What's happening with the Trump administration? Look at the way they are trying to designate.
And she has no answer whatsoever. So you're accusing Krystal of being inconsistent. I would say she's being too consistent in the sense that she's finding errors with Biden when he wasn't even in office and when there wasn't even any coercion. So if anything, in the sense of like the free speech consistency argument, I would say like her fault is painting the Democrats far too negatively than they deserve. But even if you take that view, like Tomi, you're not speaking out right now.
As material support for terrorism. Pam Bondi coming out and saying the exact woke thing that I'm sure you objected to in the past.
And I did disagree with that when Pam Bondi came out and said,
when Trump came out and said the exact same thing and said, you're not allowed to criticize me.
Yeah, did you criticize Trump?
He did not say that.
He absolutely endorsed what Pam Bondi was saying. This is so dishonest. Like, Krystal is completely correct here. And this is what they do, right? Like, they can't directly talk shit about Trump. So what they do is like, he has bad advisors. Oh, I don't agree with Bill Barr. Oh, I don't agree with Pam Bondi. Oh, he's getting the wrong talking points from Jared Kushner. The buck stops with him. They have no notion of personal responsibility, even though they preach it 24/7.
Never said that. He said we're cracking down on Antifa and domestic terrorists. Do you not?
You can look it up.
I guess I would ask you this.
Krystal's absolutely right about that. So, I mean, Trump absolutely endorsed what Pam Bondi was saying. And there's no if he didn't, by the way, and if this was such a big deal that hate speech was so horrible a concept to you, Tomi, and by the way, I don't even agree with it, why wouldn't he fire her? Why wouldn't he call on her to retract the statement? Even if there weren't statements that indicate that he supported Pam Bondi's position, which there are, his silence is a kind of implicit acceptance of it. Pam Bondi hasn't walked it back.
Do you not think that Antifa and their tactics, which I've seen firsthand, do you not think Antifa and the things that they pull, particularly in places like Seattle and Portland, do you not see that as domestic terrorism?
I think crime is crime and should be dealt with as such. But in the same way that I objected to the mass surveillance of the Bush administration and the expansion of the terror state apparatus that has occurred ever since then, I vociferously.
And by the way, Krystal kind of gave her a way out by saying the Pam Bondi thing. You should talk about the Jimmy Kimmel thing. Do you condemn it, yes or no? Because there, Tomi, the out is that Tomi is able to shunt off the blame onto Pam Bondi in a way that you really can't with Jimmy Kimmel. You shouldn't be able to with Trump, but with Jimmy Kimmel, that is closer to home. It relates to Charlie Kirk. And so I think that was the more clear vulnerability. But that said, I mean, she's getting diced up, in my opinion.
Object to this attempt to use Palantir to surveil everything that all of us say for wrongthink. God forbid that we criticize Israel. God forbid that we criticize what ICE is doing. That's the regime that they're putting into place, Tomi. I mean, that's what they are trying to effectuate right now.
Well, I disagree with you on that point, but I don't agree with
they were the lowest hanging fruit. Yeah, they were the lowest hanging fruit. And now it's coming for American citizens who also, by the way, are being caught up in these immigration raids as well. So this isn't just staying with, the people you might be more comfortable with. This has huge impacts on all of us, and especially as people who make our living through our ability to speak and to say at times provocative things. Like, that's part of the job. And that's exactly what this administration is really trying to go after.
Krystal,
and
I'm
make sure,
with
not
you.
that nobody won't be able to say anything, but that they have to think twice. I mean, you mentioned Google and YouTube, and then I'll shut
up. And that's a good little nuance there. That part of the finding of this Reagan judge, we'll go into the finding, by the way, related to free speech, where we have essentially great evidence of this conspiracy between the highest officials in Trump's White House to basically obviate people's individual rights, including speech. That the goal isn't necessarily ideological deportation en masse. The goal is to have 2, 3, 4, 5 test cases, very prominent cases that are known in the zeitgeist, and scare everybody into cooperation and silence. This was also the case with the law firms. This is also the case with big tech, and it's also the case with the universities. So it's not necessarily complete, perfect prosecution of all enemies at all times. And that's a very key nuance to grasp from what Krystal's saying here, that I'm glad that she comprehends and is able to explain.
And let you say the next thing. But
and yes, just like the Comey prosecution as well, right? And that one is even worse because it's both a signal externally to the public about political prosecutions with basically no good evidence, but also internally. Internally, the government should not be investigating itself. It should not be coming to findings that are adverse to Trump's interests. If you do, we'll go after you as well. So the Comey example, Oliver, is a great key demonstrator of the kind of signaling that doesn't necessarily translate to perfect prosecution or perfect enforcement, but a kind of chilling enforcement, which is what Krystal, I think, is getting at here, and is very well done.
Anything, but that they have to think twice. I mean, you mentioned Google and YouTube, and then I'll shut up and let you say the next thing. But they just had to do some, multi-million-dollar settlement and basically pay tribute to the Trump administration because they want to make sure their deals can go through and they get their tax breaks or whatever it is that they want. That's what all of these companies are doing, and we are totally dependent on these big companies.
You are saying that. All this stuff is not, that we have the companies that actually came out and said, Biden administration pressured us to remove this, this, and that. But you are just assigning that to these companies because you believe
that was reported within Disney. No, that's not true. That was reported about the deliberations with regard to Jimmy Kimmel.
So why
they
does
didn't
he
actually
back
have a problem with what he said.
Because all these Americans now, his ratings are back in the tank.
Because 1.7 million.
Yeah, now the ratings are back in the tank.
People canceled Disney Plus.
Yeah, the ratings are back in the tank. He got that great big boost, and then boom, his audience left again, and they will. And I'm all for him.
That's not responsive to what Krystal just said. Krystal said the reason they brought him back has to do with the pushback being worse than what they thought it would be. You don't have a response to that other than to say, well, Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are back down. That's not responsive to what Krystal said, which had to do with cancellations of subscriptions and the backlash being worse than the initial lash, and then the marshaling of support in favor of Kimmel.
On air.
Tomi,
I think he should be. I think he should fail on his own.
I haven't watched Jimmy Kimmel in ages. I don't know what he has to say.
Nobody
is. It's fine. Obviously, these are all dinosaurs programs that are going to go away eventually. It's about the principle. You know, I stood up where a lot of people during the Biden years that I have no ideological agreement with whatsoever, because it's the principle of protecting free speech, protecting the First Amendment, even the right to say things.
And just so that you guys are aware, this is, I have to raise this with Krystal at some point. I think that she and I should have a conversation about this. Maybe it'll be when we invite her, because I don't think it would be like appropriate necessarily to go on her show to have this conversation. But at some point, I do want to have a conversation about this guy, because she can't be saying this shit. This is wrong. But it's not what I do, just to be clear. I don't say I'm criticizing Biden just so I can have those bona fides. And I don't even think Krystal is subjectively thinking that here. I'm just saying, like, I am not going to criticize the Biden administration where they deserve no blame. And where it would be easy for me to say, listen, I criticize both sides, X, Y, Z. I'm not going to do that when I think that there's something not there, right? And again, I'm not ascribing to Krystal a bad motive here. I think if I explain this to her, I think she'll be convinced, because I don't think there's a good case.
Are offensive to people, that are provocative, that are outrageous. And so if you have a government that is trying to weaponize all of their agencies to try to chill speech
that's where you
and
lose me.
coerce the
That's where you
media.
lose. I don't think that they're doing that. Now, I believe in free speech. I don't believe that Kimmel or Colbert were taken off the air because of President Trump. I don't believe you on that. But you're talking about speech, and I agree with you on speech, all right? I believe in you should be able to say provocative things. I think that there is a limit when it comes to credible threats. But outside of that, I'm more talking about, you mentioned the National Guard and the troops, and I asked you about Antifa. I'm talking about actions now. I'm not talking about words. I'm talking about actions. When Antifa goes out on the street,
The FCC chairman, his statement. I mean, are statements not action? Like, it's an action. It's the threat of enforcement action, right? And you seem to, under your misapprehension of the Twitter files, Tomi, you seem to suggest that that was an action. But, like, was there any enforcement decision taken by Biden as against Twitter for any kind of lack of censorship regime? No.
and they light things on fire, or they're firebombing an ICE facility, things of that nature. Do you not think that the National Guard might be helpful in deterring some of that violence, not just to protect the federal agents, but also the federal buildings? And I don't know, maybe
what a framing, what a loading. Would it be helpful to protect? Yeah, I'm guessing that having the presence of the military would be a deterrence of some extent. Yes, I'm sure having the military in everyone's homes and having no freedom of speech at all and having no warrant requirement and just letting the military do whatever they want would also be a deterrent for criminals. That's not the question. Is only one. Like, yeah, would it be deterrent? Yeah, that's not the what's on offer. Yes, all the dictators in the world promise security and benefit, and they're all doing it to stop the bad people. Every single tin pot dictator in the world promises that trade-off and says, yes, this was to deter violence and criminals. But the question is it infringement of rights? Is it authoritarianism? Which is separate from, will it effectively deter some bad people, which I'm sure it will.
A little bit safer for the businesses and others that are operating in that vicinity to be able to carry about their daily business without being antagonized by freaks who consider themselves to be Antifa warriors?
First of all, let's talk a little bit about Antifa. Antifa, as you know, just stands for anti-fascist. I think we should all be anti-fascist. I would suspect that you would view yourself as also being anti-fascist. So Antifa as this like well-organized, well-oiled machine thing is a right-wing fantasy made up and invented out of whole cloth. So let's just put that out there. But look, if there's crimes, prosecute the crimes. Guess what? Local law enforcement is saying, we got this. Local leadership is saying, we got this.
They're not.
And so if you
local
have
law
certain,
enforcement has been hamstringed by your Democrats who want everybody to be doing arts and crafts out on the street.
Oh my God.
That's
they
ridiculous.
Don't prosecute crime, Krystal. They don't prosecute crime. That's why you have people that have been arrested 36 times
in the city of Portland.
Oh, Portland is just a
crime
fever
reduction
dream.
in the city of Portland. Baltimore, Maryland has the lowest homicide rate right now, on track, lowest on record.
Walk around
but crime
Baltimore
is going
at night?
down, so you can't.
Krystal,
you
would
can't
you go walk around?
This is such garbage. Would you go walk in a bad part of town, or would you go walk in Baltimore? It depends where. I'm sure there's some people in Bmore that would walk at night and that commute. I walk at night in New York. Now, sometimes like there are places I probably wouldn't want to go, but would I be willing to? Yeah.
Baltimore at night by yourself?
I would be fine walking around Baltimore.
I'd love to see it. Would you film it next time?
I'm not afraid of this country. I'm not afraid of the people in this country.
Right,
I don't think
we're
at war with the people in this country.
Krystal, I would love to see you go walk around these cities at night by yourself. Take a video and send it to me.
I've lived in these cities. I've walked around, not Baltimore specifically. I walked around plenty of cities, New York City at night, etc. It's not something to be terrified of. In any case, local law enforcement can handle it. The situation
here. Do these guys think that like we don't go out at night in New York? Do you think that like we don't go out at night in these places?
That you have the Trump coming in and wanting to make a show of force. This is not about dealing with crime. In fact, drug trafficking, probably something you care about. Those convictions are way down under the Trump administration. Why? Because they're all focused on
This is why I don't swim in this ocean. There are sharks that attack people. True.
raiding Home Depots rather than going after actual criminals. So
No,
if
they're
you care
blowing them
about
out of
law
the
and
water.
Oh, sure. There are places. If the question is, would you walk at night absolutely everywhere in the city? That wasn't the question, though. Is would you walk at night at Baltimore, right? So if you want to make the question more specific, would you walk around in the notorious part of Baltimore or in the bad part of X city? That's a different question. Yeah, probably not without, someone with me or XYZ. But that wasn't the question. Because what they're trying to justify is this like citywide deployment and a narrative that is broader than just like, a few bad areas or at bad times.
Krystal.
This administration has been a failure. No, when they're
No
actually
weaseling.
blowing
No,
out
the weaseling is the people who are trying to pretend that the whole city is like, certain problem areas.
water is random innocent fishermen, which
You
is
think
another
so?
reason
Do you have
why
facts
this
for that?
administration is completely out of control.
Do you have facts for that? When they're blowing up
Yeah,
these
I
drug
do.
cartel boats,
Yes,
they're
I
just
do.
fishermen?
Actually, at least one of these boats. Okay, first of all, wildly illegal under international law, even if it is drug traffickers. That's number one. Number two, very few of the drugs that come into this country, which mostly are trafficked in by American citizens, by the way, come from Venezuela. Number three, reporters found the widowed wife of one of the fishermen who was blown up. Okay, so I don't know
Krystal,
why
are
you
these
just
the same-
accept
are these the same
uncritically.
kind of people?
Hold on.
No, let me
why do you
speak.
just accept
No,
uncritically
let me-
what
first
this
of all-
administration says at every
Krystal,
turn? Like, don't you
Krystal.
have a little bit of an
I
inquisitive
love it.
mind? Like, let me
You're telling
question
me
a little
that a
bit. Let me
reporter said
question
that
the
a
government a
fisherman
little
was
bit and
blown
what
up.
they're saying.
Crystal, here's my question for you. Those same people, the fishermen on these boats with all the drugs and whatever that just happen to be on there, are they the same thing as the farmers in Iraq and Afghanistan who are just digging holes on the side of the road?
I love this comparison because it's so revealing. It is so revealing about where their mind is at. And they're accepting that these people are of the same guys who would defend war crimes abroad. Oh, yeah, he was digging for something, therefore we're going to fucking kill him right away, even if we don't have 100% certainty or even close to that it's some kind of dangerous device or something. Also, the comparison to the state of war in Iraq, which was a war authorized by Congress. Now, it wasn't a declared war. It was a use of military force but it was authorized by Congress. So it tells you where their mind is at. Krystal DM'd me with this a few days ago and basically said to pop the popcorn. She fucked Tomi up bad. I mean, it is pretty brutal here by Krystal. The point of major disagreement with Krystal is on the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, but you know that, Josiah. Like, I'm very passionate about the Twitter files garbage narrative. So that's something that I will definitely want to talk to Krystal about. But other than that, I think she's been doing a great, wonderful job, and Tomi has been dodging, pivoting, looking weak, basically saying, well, what about this, and Krystal has great answers to her questions about consistency. Even sometimes I think she goes too far in agreeing with some of the Republican narratives, but optically I think that she's just crushing.
Filling them with bombs to blow up our soldiers. The same
By
thing.
the way, I'm not saying that I could have done better. I often say people like Krystal, people like Mockler, who are other people that I say this about? Mehdi Hassan, they do things I couldn't do. They can appeal to mass audiences in ways that I can't because my brain is too like this, and I just want to like stick on one point and just hit them hard with it and make them suffer. But that's not always the thing that will yield good results in the sense of people agreeing with you. I think that Krystal, Mehdi Hassan, Adam Mockler, at times they are doing a kind of performance which isn't like, strictly speaking, I think topical, but it is more effective. And so I want to be clear. I'm not saying that I could have done better than Krystal. I think that Krystal, Mockler, Mehdi Hassan, they do better than I can do in these appearances.
Think that we massacred civilians in Iraq? Do you think we didn't massacre civilians?
And she goes right there. I mean, because she has been a big critic of the neocons, and you shouldn't have said that.
In Iraq?
I'm sure that we did. It's called war, my friend. But this whole thing of like, they're just fishermen, they're just farmers. It's bullshit, and you know it's bullshit. But what's weird to me is Democrats will go out of
It's
your
weird
way.
to me that you just accept whatever this administration says when they lie
Boom.
all the time.
Oh,
like
fuck.
their go-to move is just to lie about some stuff. We're told the CCOT guys were the worst of the worst. Oh, they're the worst of the worst. They're these violent criminals. They're all gang members.
Damn, look at her fidgeting. Absolutely crushed.
And behold, the vast majority of them had no criminal records. Many of them were following the vast majority of them had no criminal records, and some of them were following the immigration procedures. And they're sentenced to this foreign slave labor camp with zero due process. And it's crazy to me that you think that these principles will just stay with the people that you don't care
Damn,
about.
look at that. Look at that cuck smile. She's getting fucking turned.
due process is thrown out the window, that isn't an attack on all of our rights.
Are you one of those Kilmar Abrego Garcia, Maryland father?
Oh my God.
You think he's just
of course,
a Maryland
he was
father?
wrongfully deported. This administration admitted they wrongfully deported him.
But
they admitted that, not me. They did.
Don't get into the Kilmar stuff. It's not good for conservatives. And Krystal is so prepared for this debate. You don't want to have a debate about Kilmar with Krystal, because I know she knows this.
He was wrongfully deported to El Salvador because a judge said he couldn't go there because he feared retribution from rival gangs. So it wasn't that he was
not rival gangs. Where do these? They just lie with impunity. No one ever calls him on that shit. There was no finding that he was a member of a gang at all. In fact, at least 3 or 4 courts have found no good evidence that he's a member of a gang, contrary to what the Executive Office for Immigration Review under Trump term 1, for purposes of this like bail hearing, said that he was a member of a gang. But that was a bail, a deferential standard of bail review. And afterwards, we found out that there's no good evidence, because we've actually looked at the allegations by the Maryland police office in that situation, and they're just not good inferences that this guy's a member of a gang. He's like, oh, because he wore Chicago Bulls clothing. Oh, because some uninformed anonymous person who we don't know, and the cop who said it was an anonymous person, like that person was suspended and later fired because he was doing improper disclosures and was corrupt. Yeah, that guy said that, some anonymous person said that he was a member of a gang. No, if there was good evidence that he was a member of a gang, they would have produced it in federal court, which they didn't.
eligible for deportation, Krystal. It said they shouldn't have sent him to El Salvador because then his rival gang members might kill him. So that was the issue. But he's not a gang member, but he's fearful of rival gangs. So that's a little weird to me. But again, so he was eligible for deportation because he's an illegal alien.
How they try to exact retribution against people who won't join with them and, pay their tribute?
That's what it was?
You don't know that's how gangs work?
That's what it was. He's
You're
definitely,
not familiar with that?
even though how many judges in Prince George County said this guy is MS-13, you're like, nope, he said he wasn't, so he's not.
Zero said that, Tommy. Zero said that. You got to get your facts straight, girl.
They didn't have evidence that his MS-13
this bullshit case against them that they ginned up, by the way, was falling apart. So, they're trying to, or they're deporting him to a random third country.
Krystal, so
but because they knew.
Yeah.
No, but Tommy, the reason they're doing that is because they knew they were not going to be able to get a conviction against them because there was no there on this nonsense that they ginned up against him.
So when he was in Tennessee with all those people in the vehicle that had no...
Hell yeah. And I love, she's so confident about the narrative here. I know she's done her homework on Kilmar stuff. And I wonder how she's going to deal with the Tennessee stuff. The Tennessee stuff, again, not establishing that he's a member of a gang, and at most establishing that he's moving people around in a car, like Uber, like Ron DeSantis and Abbott, when they were moving around people without any authorization to be in the country to different places, like that kind of shit. What is that proving exactly?
Luggage and didn't really know where they were going. He wasn't trafficking people. They were just heading out to a party. Heading out to a Tupperware party or what?
Law enforcement evaluated the situation and
no. The Biden administration said let him go.
So I'm going to take the cops.
No,
I'm going
Krystal.
to take the cops' word for it at the time.
Krystal.
Versus
those
your
are our
word
law
for it
enforcement officers in
invented case
Tennessee.
for the government.
Krystal, law enforcement officers in Tennessee.
Let me ask you this, Tommy.
So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that in 2020 that we can't go off of the fact that it was Trump's DOJ because Trump doesn't have mind control powers over everyone involved. But then also say, oh, it was Biden's ICE, it was Biden's DHS in 2022. And so we can't trust anything. So do you understand what I'm saying? You can't have it both ways. If you're going to ascribe basically strict liability to Joe Biden for anything done by the federal government under his purview, then you need to apply that standard consistently to Trump vis-a-vis Twitter files, also vis-a-vis the granting of withholding of removal to Kilmar Garcia in the first place, where it was Trump's DOJ, remember the Executive Office for Immigration Review, the immigration judges, are executive branch officials under Trump. So the decision to give Kilmar Garcia what is a de facto status, withholding of removal, was a decision made by Trump's DOJ. If you're going to do this kind of strict liability thing and apply it to the police stop in 2022 and the decision to let him go, then you need to be consistent both ways in terms of the strict liability.
Oh, this is your game to just interrupt me the entire time, but you're not going to do it.
Shouldn't they prosecute him then? If he's this violent gang leader.
The Biden administration said to let him go. He was on body cam with our Tennessee law enforcement officers that said this guy is human trafficking. The Biden administration said to let him go. It wasn't our law enforcement in Tennessee.
Joe Biden intervenes here? Okay. Tommy, but if he's this violent gang leader, don't you want to see him prosecuted?
I want to see him sent out of our country.
Brought to justice?
You're
going to just let this violent gang leader go? Shouldn't be.
That's what I said to Tim Pool. Krystal. She's on that level. This is an A+ debater, and it's she does things that I could never do. She's really good. Now, I don't agree with all her positions, but I think she's really, really good.
Prosecuted here, shouldn't he face criminal justice for these horrific acts you're alleging that he committed? No, they want to just get him out of the country because they know they can't secure a conviction because they know there's no there there. So you should be very upset with them for dropping this case and just deporting him.
No, I love it when they just deport the
time or do
criminals.
anything for these horrific human.
Yeah, just deport the murderers. Don't prosecute them. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? No, we prosecute people who commit crimes in our jurisdiction. Can you imagine the kind of cuckoldry entailed in just like not prosecuting criminals who commit violent acts in your jurisdiction? Why would we do that? Why would we just let the murderers free? Why would we let violent criminals loose onto the world? There was this concept of just desserts and tough on crime. What, you're just going to kick them out of the country so they can sneak back in?
Trafficking things that
No,
you say
Krystal,
that
I
he
love it
did.
when they just deport them. So you got the wrong number on that one. I love it when they just deport people. I think that's better. I'd rather
So you
do
like
that
it when
than...
people don't face justice?
No, they do.
You
It's
like
called
to let
Boom! Fucking, this is embarrassing, Tommy.
criminals go free.
No, it's being
You like to
deported.
let criminals go free and not have to serve time in prison.
Ow! 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 Tommy, what are you gonna
I
say?
like them to be deported.
I like them to be deported. I don't like them to fucking face justice.
We tried to send him to El Salvador, but unfortunately, you guys cried about that and over margaritas. So there was that. Let's go to this. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on this. Pete Hegseth thinks that we should have uniform standards for men and women in combat positions. I'm going to play the clip and then
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. I look really
we'll
bad.
hear your take on it.
This, and I want to be very clear about this, this is not about preventing women from serving. We very much value the impact of female troops. Our female officers and NCOs are the absolute best in the world. But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. This is combat. This is life or death. As we all know, this is you versus an enemy hell-bent on you. To be an effective, lethal fighting force, you must trust that the warrior alongside you in battle is capable, truly physically capable of doing what is necessary under fire. You know this is the only standard you would want for your kids and for your grandkids. Apply the War Department Golden Rule, the 1990 test, and the E6 test.
Tommy, this is too long of a clip. Can you just get to the debate?
All right, Krystal. I'm sure you got an issue with that. So you want to tell me what it is?
Why are you such a fucking... I'm not going to say it. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just be normal?
I don't have an issue, Tommy. It's fine.
You don't?
Fewer women sent to fight and die in pointless foreign wars. Fine with me.
So you're fine with the standards. So you agree with our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, that we need to have uniform standards. And if women can't meet them, then that's DEI doesn't apply here?
Like I said, if we have fewer women sent overseas, fewer everyone sent overseas to fight and die in useless foreign wars, then I have no problem with that.
Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that. And I'm...
Are these people immune? Like, she is so fucking mad. I've never seen a more mad person.
assuming that you're against DEI then just universally, or do you...
Yo, look at that. Look at that
like the
smirk.
DEI concept?
She knows.
I actually am against. It depends on your definition of DEI. I think
Yeah, it
Republicans have
depends.
perverted it to just mean like when black people get jobs. For example, the mayor of
True.
Baltimore was called a DEI mayor, even though he was democratically elected just because he happens to be a black man. But you know, I've opposed things like affirmative action used in college admissions and things of that nature. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we can both agree that the Department of War should not...
And she puts in the Department of War. I'm glad we can both agree that the Department of War is the greatest department of all time, and we should kick women out of the military.
be using DEI. So we found one area of agreement. Hallelujah. I'm glad that you brought up DEI hires, though, in terms of what we Republicans think of it.
She's pressed. And look, and Krystal knows she's pressed.
What do you think about that Iowa superintendent who's an illegal alien? What do you think about him getting that job? Are you cool with that one too, or you're going to surprise me?
That one.
Maybe. I mean, in terms of his performance on the job, it seems like he did a good job. The community is out protesting his potential deportation because he was getting test scores back up after there was COVID learning loss. And, you know, I mean, to me, this is someone who apparently is exactly the type of person we would want in this country, not just when he was in Des Moines, but he also had a high-level role in St. Louis school systems and Pennsylvania school district. He was considered an outstanding principal in the Washington, D.C. school system. He's been in the country for decades, and he seems exactly like the sort of person that we should reward with citizenship, who's a tremendous benefit to our country and to his community.
The weapons they found, that doesn't concern you at all?
I thought you were a 2A girl.
I am a 2A girl, but illegal aliens doesn't apply to them, babe.
Why?
They don't get
I
to
mean,
just
he's
walk
got a
around
hunting
willy
rifle.
nilly.
I don't have a problem with someone having a hunting rifle personally.
So you don't care if illegal aliens have?
No, I think he should have
firearms?
citizenship. That's my point. Is I don't really understand why you guys think the story is like a good one. And
Yeah,
your side
because
he's
Democrats
not-
tell
because
us
he's
that they're
not the
not getting these
stereotype.
jobs. You guys tell us they're
He's
not.
not the stereotype that you're trying to perpetuate about undocumented immigrants. You know, he has been an upstanding community member for decades. He's served school districts. He's been a fantastic educator. He was performing, apparently, according to locals, he was performing quite admirably in this job right here. So no, I believe that immigrants are a net benefit to society. And I believe someone like him should have been rewarded with citizenship long ago.
But
Now, like
but
clearly he
wasn't,
lied in the
though.
job application process. That's not acceptable,
So
et
does that
cetera.
not bother
But this
you at
is
all,
exactly
though?
why we need. Well, to me, it's an example of how immigrants benefit our country and why we need a path to citizenship so that people can be brought out of the shadows and can contribute openly in society the way that this man was.
So I guess my larger question here isn't about maybe him himself. If you say he's a great guy, I'm just going to go ahead and give you that one. He's this great guy. You know, they found this stuff, but that's fine. Do you think it's a little odd, though? Because Democrats tell me all the time that illegal aliens, they aren't getting health care. They're not voting. They're not slipping through the cracks. And then we get examples where it's like, holy shit, this guy slipped through your very tough vetting process. And he's also, by the way, a registered Democrat. But I thought that he couldn't vote. So I'm confused because you guys told me that this never happens.
I don't know if he's registered to vote. I think we should look into that. There's zero evidence that there's any significant issue with undocumented immigrants voting.
So you want the
committing
illegals to
voter
vote?
fraud. That would be voter fraud.
She said the literal opposite. You want illegal to vote. Look at this. How dishonest.
I don't know if he's registered to vote. I think we should look into that. There's zero
She says, I don't know if he's registered. We should look into that. I don't think that there's evidence of this being a major problem.
evidence that there's any significant issue with undocumented immigrants voting.
So you want the
committing
illegals to
voter
vote?
fraud. That would be
So you want the illegals to vote. What a decrepit piece of shit. She's basically saying we should investigate this. If she wanted them to vote, why would she say we should investigate it?
voter fraud. I didn't say that. I said there's
Holy crap.
No
What, that's so
significant
bad faith. Like, can you imagine? And these people scream bad faith and loading and all that shit. She says the literal opposite. And her mind is already playing out a script. Did you see this? Just watch this.
Confused because you guys told me that this never happens.
I don't know if he's registered to vote. I think we should look into that. There's zero evidence that there's any significant issue with undocumented immigrants voting.
So you want the
committing
illegals to
voter
vote?
fraud. That would be voter fraud. I didn't say that. I said there's no
Literal
significant
opposite.
evidence. There's no evidence actually at all that undocumented immigrants vote in significant numbers. Now, what I am in favor of is a pathway to citizenship for people who do pay taxes, who follow the rules, who, you know, whatever the guidelines you want to set out. So there's a predictable path so that people can be brought out of the shadows and contribute to society and contribute, you know, and have to abide by labor laws and all of that. That's what I think would benefit immigrants, that would benefit our society more broadly. And that's what I'm in favor of.
Do you think that that pathway to citizenship would be to come to the country legally in the first place? Isn't that the best and
We
brightest
actually
path?
did, but yes. Yeah, absolutely. But right now we don't have a system that is set up. I mean, it's a completely broken system. I think you have to acknowledge that. And especially depending on the country you're coming from, there's basically no possibility of that. So you have a lot of people who are truly desperate, who are trying to survive, who want to come here because they believe in the promise of America. And so I believe we should have a path that, you know, allows them to present themselves at a legal port of entry and follow a process and be tracked through the system and all of that. Like that, to me, in my mind, would be a functional immigration system where you don't have the sense of lawlessness and chaos and people who are working in the shadows, who, by the way, are frequently exploited and abused because they don't have legal status here.
Yeah, because they didn't come the right way. So if fewer people would come the wrong way, you could have more people able to come the right way. I want to talk a little bit about New York City. I don't know if you're a Mamdani fan or not.
Let's
but,
see it.
You are a big fan of Mamdani?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you are? Okay. So he wants to provide $65 million for gender-affirming care. I want to play the clip, and then I want you to tell me why we should be footing the bill for that. Let's take a listen.
It is absolutely disgusting that it's started administration. They are looking to erase trans folks from the very fabric of this country. And it's up to us to actually show what leadership we look like. And one of the things that we've said, beyond saying you're doing ethnic tracing for LGBTQIA plus enrollers, beyond saying you're going to be able to establish an office of LGBTQIA plus affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million of funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding for the federal government to pull out from local providers for that agreement.
So do you think that they should be footing the bill for the gender-affirming care?
I mean, Tommy, I think everyone should get healthcare. So yes, I think trans people should get healthcare as well. And what he's talking about is, number one, consistent with New York law, which requires gender affirming care to be provided. And number two, consistent with, you know, basic moral values. Yeah, I think trans people should be able to get healthcare. And one thing I want to say about this, which, well, I mean, personally, I think we should all get healthcare, access to healthcare.
So you think we should pay for everybody's gender transition?
I think that we should pay for gender affirming care which is medically required for trans people to feel okay. And I think it's disgusting the way that trans people have been turned into scapegoats by this administration, who is more interested in like fighting a culture war than really exposing the fact that they are doing the bidding of billionaires, and that those are the people who we really should be upset about, not trans people, not immigrants. But these are all distraction tactics to keep us from talking about the issues that really actually unite Americans.
I'm not so sure paying for gender affirming care or transitions for everybody is necessarily something that unites Americans. I think there was a pretty effective.
Didn't she just say that? So this is her not listening. These conservative influencers, they don't know how to listen, and they don't know how to read either. She didn't say that this is the issue that unites America. She said the opposite. She said this is a distraction from the issues that unite America.
Ad leading up to the election last year.
That's definitely twisting my words. That's the opposite of what I said. What I said is these tactics are used to divide and distract from the fact that Trump is giving away the store to his billionaire buddies. So no, he wants to do that. And I support him doing that, by the way. And I also support him not running away from the issue. And this is part of what people like about Zoran. Putting the issue specifics aside, they like that he stands on business. It's sort of, he's sort of like the Democrats' Trump in a way. Maybe that'll make sense to you. He doesn't run away from his views. He stands on business.
I don't agree with this comparison.
He says things that get people, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he said he'd stay here in New York City rather than run to Israel first thing when he's elected. And he's like, yeah, that's what I think. The fact that he actually fights for something and stands for affordability and being New York first, that's exactly why people have found him so incredibly appealing.
Is it affordable to pay $65 million for gender affirming care or $100 million for free lawyers to help illegals facing deportation? Is that in the best interest of New York City and their budget?
Well, you may not be aware, but there are a lot of immigrants and there are a lot of queer people in New York City. So yes, there is a segment of New York society that will benefit. But more to the point, Zoran's politics are a unifying politics because he's led his campaign with, hey, let's bring down the cost of public transportation. Hey, let's make it so that people can afford childcare, so that childcare could actually be free. Hey, let's make sure people can actually afford rent in the city.
And how is he going to do
leadership, which has mostly been, well, let me get to that in a second. Most leadership in New York City has been Democratic, and they have turned the city into a playground of the rich. And so many working middle class people have been forced out of the city. He's saying, what if we ran the city actually for all of us? So we prioritize people who are working and middle class being able to actually live here. So I'll give you, I'm sure you are familiar with, some of his policy proposals, and I'm not going to go through all like 30 or whatever, but the top of the list, he's got free childcare. He's got free public buses. He's got an affordable housing surge plus a rent freeze for
free
buses, apartments. And he's got, this pilot program that got a lot of attention for the public subsidized grocery stores to help in places that are food deserts. These are honestly very modest proposals that help to get the housing and the affordability crisis under control in a very expensive city.
I mean, how is he going to pay for the free for everybody? I'm just curious because
let's tax the rich, baby.
So we're just going to tax all the rich.
Hell yeah.
You think if you just tax all the rich people,
can I get a base?
Tommy, you don't think rich people should pay a little bit more?
No.
You don't think that rich people are shirking their burden? I mean,
Holy
the extraordinary amount of wealth that has been consolidated in the hands of the wealthy is insane, and they pay a lower tax burden if you look at their net worth than like average middle class people. It's overwhelmingly popular.
So you don't think
tax the rich, including among MAGA Republicans? I mean, this is something that Steve Bannon has talked about.
True.
Right now, the people that are leaving New York City are not the rich. It's the working class and the middle class who are priced out of that city. And so that's what he's laser focused on.
But you don't think that if you just pay for all of these free programs by taxing the rich, you think that the rich people are just going to stay there and keep their money there and they're just going to fund all this? You think so?
Yeah, I do. They've done research, Tommy, and they have found that there, is very little evidence that the rich will just pick up and leave New York because they have to pay a little bit more in taxes. New York has a lot that's going for it. There's a lot of reasons why wealthy business owners, Wall Street, et cetera, want to congregate in this great American city. And no, I don't see that changing or going away. But I do think the city should be run more for its middle class and working class residents than for the rich. And apparently New Yorkers agree.
How much more are you going to have to tax these rich people to pay for all of the free programs for New Yorkers
illegals,
and for the illegal aliens and for the trans and all that? How much do you think? Like, how much more
oh my
do you think you can squeeze out of the wealthy there?
Well, I'm not Zoran's budget director, so you have to ask him that question.
I don't know if he has one.
Compared to their level of wealth, he's been very detail oriented, which is something, frankly, I was concerned about because I want to make sure that not only is he able to win, but he's able to govern effectively. And so if you listen to his interviews, if you review his policy proposals, you'll see this is not some like dyed-in-the-wool ideologue. He's been very open to, input, including from the business community, including from board.
Tommy is using it dishonestly. I think how you're going to pay for it, I think it's a little much to expect every commentator necessarily to know the ins and outs of how it would be paid. Certainly, because like I'm sure New York State would have to be involved if we're talking about some level of money. I'm not sure how much the mayor is going to be able to fund all of this based on the local taxes and shit. But it's dishonest because where was Tommy talking about how we're going to pay for the biggest, most expensive, most deficit destructive bill of all time passed by her dear leader. Like, the big beautiful bill was insane amounts of deficit spending, insane to the budget. Was she calling it out? I'm like, oh, how are we going to pay for it? And they lowered taxes.
Moderate Democrats, and yeah, he's put pen to paper and has the numbers to back it up. Now,
when
he
you
may
just
have
say tax
the challenge
everybody,
he's going
that's
to have.
not really
For the rich.
Yeah,
that's not really pen to paper.
For everyone, I guess. But
it's just somebody else will pay.
Well, I
for
don't
all
really
of my
say tax
things.
everybody. I said tax the rich.
Oh, just
and I
tax
do
the
think
rich, okay.
the rich should be taxed, not just in New York, but across the country.
Oh, okay.
And America agrees with me.
We should all
because
just
they've
get
rigged the
poorer
system to
together.
their benefit.
Socialism
They've
sounds
rigged the
great.
system to their benefit. I mean, they just got a gigantic tax cut from this administration. So if
Everybody
we just
did.
gave that back, that would be in a.
Everybody
it
got
was
a tax cut.
overwhelmingly the rich, though.
Our GDP
It
went
was
up, too.
overwhelmingly the rich.
Yeah.
And if you just gave that back, we would be headed in a better direction, because I do think the rich deserve, I do think the rich should have to participate in society, that they should, yes, pay back into the society that helped them become so incredibly wealthy, and that we have to deal with these wildly unequal Gilded Age plus levels of wealth inequality that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Socialism has usually worked so well.
Oh my God.
Well as its cousin communism. You're right. We should definitely.
Tommy,
give
there's
that
a
go.
reason.
This is like the fucking. This is the best they got. This reminds me of that woman who went to go ask Dasha a question. Have you heard of Venezuela?
There's a reason that Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America, because most people don't think of this as socialism. They see it as basic fairness.
Yeah,
they
most
see
of
it
us are
as
dumb.
a basic part of the
That's
social
'cause you're dumb.
contract. You think most Americans are dumb?
Most Americans are
my-
not for socialism, babe. But if you want to
Most
run
Americans-
it, go for it.
How fucking condescending can you be? She looks petty. She is acting all glum because she got totally dumpstered, and Krystal knows it.
Like I just said, Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. So you have to grapple with that. I mean, we've had many periods in our country where tax rates for the rich were much higher, and where the disparity between the wealthiest and the bottom 10% or the bottom 20% was much smaller. And guess what? We're still a capitalist country. We're still doing just fine. We had a much healthier society, much healthier middle class. People were able to afford a home, able to afford healthcare.
We're
And
just
so I
a
don't think
little
it's a
more
radical
socialist.
idea to get back to that.
Well, I think it's a radical idea. I hope that works out for you. Do you think that that as a national platform is going to help Democrats win
Taxing the
elections?
rich?
Yeah. Do you think just
Taxing the rich,
socialism?
100%.
Oh, but
I
didn't you
think
try
taxing
that
the
last
rich.
time?
I
You
think
didn't try that last
taxing
time?
the rich. What are you talking about? With Kamala?
Yeah,
when
with
Kamala was
Kamala.
running around Mark Cuban and Liz Cheney and made a lot of mistakes that are in her campaign. So no, I do not see Kamala as my ideological ally whatsoever. But Bernie would have won. I mean, saying, look, we're going to have, of course, building out the social safety net, getting back to being the New Deal era Democratic Party, saying everyone's going to have access to healthcare. Everyone's going to be able to afford to have childcare for their children. We're going to lift the wage to be a living wage. We're going to invest in unions, make sure we have labor power. That is an overwhelmingly popular
Where does
message.
that
In
work?
fact, where does it work?
Yeah, where does that
I mean,
that concept work?
it worked in America. Tell me, it worked in America
Hell
during the New
yeah.
Deal era. That's where it
But
worked.
base.
We can look at our own
would be the best
history.
Super
example, right?
base.
California probably the best example. We're going to pay the fast food workers this, and we're going to have illegal aliens on healthcare and Medi-Cal and all this stuff. Would you cite that as an
Medi-Cal.
example of where this type of governance works, or this type of economics works?
I mean, again, Gavin Newsom is not my ideological ally. I'm not a liberal. I'm a leftist. I'm a democratic socialist. He vetoed universal or blocked universal health care from coming to fruition.
Well, 'cause they couldn't
But
even afford to
California
provide
has
it for
one
the
of the
illegals, you know?
California has one of the most vibrant economies
How mad is Tommy right
in the
now?
entire world.
looks
Now,
like
they also have
Try not to be a massive bitch for 2 second challenge. Immediately failed.
a mass affordability crisis, as does New York City, as does every
Yeah.
city, major city, basically in the country.
oh,
So
yeah,
I think we
it's
need to
working well.
dramatically address the affordable housing crisis, and that's part of what Zoran has been running on. So I took a look. There's only 26% of the country that actually opposes his core policy proposals that he ran on. So do I think it's a national message? Of course. I think
Well,
Democrats
Krystal-
would have done much, much better if they focused on these core economic issues.
I hope that you guys stick with that, and I hope that Mamdani is your
Oh my
poster child, and I hope that you
God.
run on it. I'm not going to give you any feedback because I too hope that that is the direction that you go. I think that's a
You
great
don't think
idea.
taxing the rich is popular?
I think you
Tommy,
should.
you don't
I
think
think
tax the rich is popular?
I think you guys
You should talk to Steve
continue
Bannon about
on-
this. He has
yeah.
a different idea.
Well, I'm not a
He has
I'm
a
not
different
Steve
idea
Bannon
about it.
apologist either, but I think you guys should run on that. I'm not going to interject, and I think that all illegal aliens should stay. You should make them all citizens. I think that you should tax the rich. I think you should provide trans surgeries for everybody. I think you should have all the men and the women's
I think we should have
sports.
healthcare across the board for everybody.
I think you
Not
guys
just
should
for
just
trans
stay
people,
on this
for all people.
Yeah, I think you guys should just stay on that message. I think it's going to work out really nice for us. So I'm not going to.
Oh my
I'm not in
God.
any way
I've
going to
never.
ask you to change
She's
course. I think
so mad. Holy fuck.
that's a great idea for you guys.
Krystal,
the
absolute
last thing I want
dub.
to talk to you about is because I'm about ready to do my commentary on it. But do you think Bad Bunny is a good choice for the Super Bowl?
I'm not that like knowledgeable about him, but it seems fine, and I don't know why it's a big deal. Seems like a great American artist, so sure.
Have you guys seen that guy on TikTok? Speaking of which, follow me on TikTok at Pisco. Do it. It's your civic duty. If you love America, you follow me on TikTok if you're on that app at all. Also, Instagram is a backup because you'll get a lot of the content on Instagram. It's just a good idea. Go do it. But there's a guy on TikTok who's like doing this pretty funny Bad Bunny impression.
Not an American artist, but
he's Puerto Rican. That's part of America, dear.
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Wait, what?
He's a good choice for the Super Bowl.
I'm not that like knowledgeable about him, but it seems fine, and I don't know why it's a big deal. Seems like a great American artist, so sure.
He's not an American artist, but
oh, she doesn't know. No.
good choice for the Super Bowl.
I'm not that like knowledgeable about him, but it seems fine, and I don't know why it's a big deal. Seems like a great American artist, so sure.
He's not an American artist, but
he's Puerto Rican. That's part of America, dear.
Yeah, you don't think you have any problem with him saying like the ICE is? Well, I'm sure you don't. Mother effers and sons of and that he's not going to perform here due to immigration.
America agrees with him on that.
You
I
think
mean,
so?
the majority of Americans think ICE has gone too far. They've watched videos of like 79-year-old business owners be slammed to the ground and their ribs broken by ICE. So I think the American people are probably on board with that message at this point, Tomi.
Okay. Well, whoever you're talking to, I'm sure is. I'm not so sure the rest of the country is, but
I'm just looking at the polls. That's all.
Yeah, but you told me earlier the polls didn't matter, Krystal.
that are behind my statements, not just the vibes.
Matter. Remember that when you told me
Yeah,
that
because
earlier?
principles
Don't matter?
Principles matter. Principles matter.
So
And
polls
but
and
when you're talking about
principles
where
matter?
the American people are, that's when I consult the data. But in terms of what I
When it's
believe,
helpful to you.
those are principles. No, in terms of what I believe, those are my principles.
So this is so funny because Tomi brings up the whole position of, well, I hope you keep running on this because you're going to lose. And so Tomi is bringing into question the popularity of the platform. Tomi keeps wanting to go back to that. And so when Krystal says, well, I think American people are with me, in response to what Tomi is saying, he's like, oh, now you care about polls all of a sudden. Like, no, you fucking idiot. You keep bringing it up. And so she's not saying it's good because they agree with me. She's responding to your bullshit that the American people wouldn't accept like a given platform or idea. This is so dishonest, God. And she's really one of the dumber commentators. I mean, there are a lot there. I mean, it's a super like filled field in terms of dumb conservative commentators, but she is up there. She's in the top 5 percentile.
And I stand by them, even when they're unpopular.
Well, I love that you do that. So that's the one thing that we can agree on is that you should stand by your principles
What a
and the
bitch.
polls when they're advantageous to your side. Krystal, I enjoy the conversation. Thank you for having it, and best of luck with the Democrat Socialist endeavor in America.
What a loser!
Careful what you wish for, girl.
Oh!
Best of luck.
Absolute domination. Great job, Krystal. I have to give her a 9 out of 10. I have to dock a full point for how she fumbled, in my opinion, the Hunter Biden laptop stuff by giving too much ground. Now, the average viewer, I think, isn't going to be as on that point as me. And so, this is my personal rating. I'm not saying that it detracted from her optical performance. It might have even contributed to it, to the average viewer. But because I'm someone who cares about changing that narrative, I think it's a stupid narrative. I have to dock her a point on my personal rating. But great job, Krystal. We're going to have a conversation at some point about the Hunter Biden laptop bullshit narrative. But thank you so much. Guys, if there's one thing I live by, it's follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram, Pisco, and Hutch is my boy.